Today's experience was to us by a brother. He died and went to hell. He was told some common music Christians played and listened that had landed them in hellfire unknowingly. Kindly stay to the end to fully understand his experience. My name is Joseph Kemble. For 9 years, I had been a truck driver, crisscrossing highways and backroads, delivering goods across cities. It wasn't just a job, it was a lifestyle. I had faced challenges on the road before, dangerous weather, careless drivers, but I always made it through. Until that fateful day when everything changed. It was a typical drive, or so I thought. The sky was clear, and the roads were familiar. As I drove along the highway, I noticed a car ahead, swerving in and out of lanes. Something was off. I honked to warn the driver, but before I could react, the car suddenly cut across my lane. I slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. My truck, heavy with its load, jackknifed and spun out of control. The sound of metal scraping, glass shattering, and tires screeching filled the air as my truck collided with multiple vehicles. The impact was catastrophic, and I could hear screams and see the chaos unfold around me. The force of the crash threw me forward violently, my chest slamming into the steering wheel. I felt an intense pain in my ribs, and it was as if the breath was being knocked out of me. I gasped for air, but each breath became harder to take. My vision blurred as I struggled to stay conscious. As I sat there, the pain in my chest worsening, I could hear people outside the truck trying to break the door open. They were shouting, desperate to help, but I was slipping away. Suddenly, I felt myself floating, weightless. I looked down and saw my own body slumped over the steering wheel. I was outside myself, watching as they tried to save me, but I knew it was too late. Then, just like that, I vanished from the scene. In an instant, I found myself in a place that I instantly knew was hell. The air was thick, and the heat was unbearable. The darkness was oppressive, yet I could see everything clearly. The landscape was desolate, filled with despair and anguish. I could feel the weight of every soul's torment pressing down on me. As I stood there, for demons appeared before me, each more grotesque than the last. One was tall and skeletal, with elongated limbs and hollow eyes that glowed red. The second had the face of a beast, with sharp fangs and claws dripping with blood. The third was covered in scales, its skin oozing a foul, black liquid. The fourth was a twisted, shadowy figure, its form constantly shifting, making it hard to define. I looked around and saw the souls of the damned, each undergoing unique and horrifying torments. One man was trapped in a cage of fire, his skin melting and regenerating over and over. Another was suspended upside down, with molten metal being poured into his mouth. A woman was chained to a wall, with her limbs being stretched beyond human limits, her bones audibly cracking. A fourth soul was being devoured by rats that seemed to multiply endlessly, gnawing at his flesh without pause. But what caught my attention most was a group of souls in a section of hell where the torment took on a different form. They weren't screaming or pleading like the others. Instead, they were singing songs of agony and pain. Their voices were filled with sorrow, and yet they sang in unison, their anguish woven into the melody. The songs were haunting, echoing through the pits of hell, a reminder of their eternal suffering. I didn't understand why, but unlike the others, I wasn't being tormented. I felt the heat, the despair, but no demon came for me. I stood there, untouched by the flames, watching as souls around me suffered. I had no explanation for this strange mercy. Suddenly, I was moved by an invisible force toward the section where the souls were singing in agony. Their voices grew louder, filled with regret and remorse, yet they could not stop singing. It was as if their suffering had become their song, and they were bound to it forever. As I stood there, I overheard the demons mocking the souls, revealing to them why they would continue to suffer in hell. The demons took pleasure in reminding them that their fate was sealed because of the lives they had lived on earth. They reveled in their torment, taunting them with cruel laughter. One demon revealed how their strategy of infiltrating the church had been successful. They had introduced worldly and satanic music into the church, and many genuine Christians had been deceived. The souls before me had once been faithful believers, but they had fallen into the trap of enjoying music that had its roots in darkness. The demon continued, explaining how they had worked tirelessly to ensure that Christian music became corrupted. They had raised artists who would bow to their offers, strike deals with them, and become vessels to lead more souls into hell. Even those who had once been faithful in their service to God were not immune. What shocked me to my core was the revelation that the souls singing in pain had once been faithful Christians. These were men and women who had genuinely served God, people who had dedicated their lives to His work. They had been in the church, prayed fervently, and lived in the faith. Yet, despite their commitment, they had found themselves in hell. The demon revealed this as a dark secret, mocking the souls who had thought they were safe in their salvation. Somewhere along the way, these once faithful Christians had made a fatal error. They had begun to embrace music that was not of God, music whose origins were rooted in darkness. At first, it seemed harmless. The songs felt good, uplifting even. The melodies were catchy, the beats infectious, and the emotions they stirred felt powerful. They felt a sense of joy and freedom when they sang these songs. But what they didn't realize was that this sense of freedom was false. It was a deception, a carefully constructed illusion by the enemy to lead them off the narrow path. The demon revealed that the origins of these songs were from hell itself. Although these Christians had been strong in their faith, they lacked discernment. They were so caught up in the rhythm and the beauty of the music that they failed to see the spiritual corruption within it. The songs might have had Christian-sounding lyrics or at least neutral messages, but the spirit behind the music was not from God. It was from the enemy, disguised in a form that would appeal to the flesh, not the spirit. The demon mocked them, saying they didn't care where the songs came from, as long as it made them feel good. And now look where they are. The demon continued to mock, revealing how the corruption started small, perhaps with just one or two songs that seemed innocent enough. But over time, these songs became more prominent in their worship. They started replacing songs that glorified God with those that only glorified emotions and the desires of the flesh. The spiritual focus shifted from worshiping God in spirit and in truth to satisfying personal emotions and seeking a feel-good experience. They had unknowingly invited the enemy into their place of worship through the very songs they sang. What shocked me the most was when the demon revealed that the souls singing in pain had once been faithful Christians. They had served God genuinely, but somewhere along the line, they had begun to sing demonic songs because they enjoyed how it made them feel. These songs had sounded good to their ears, but their origins were from hell itself. Over time, these songs had corrupted their faith, and now they found themselves in hell. The demon mocked them, saying that they had unknowingly brought these songs into the church. They had polluted the worship services, and in doing so had opened a door for the enemy to deceive others. Many Christians had been influenced by these songs, and they too would soon find themselves in hell, just like the souls before me. As the demon continued his cruel mockery, I suddenly felt a presence beside me. It wasn't like the demons. It was calm, almost peaceful. I turned and saw a figure that looked like an ordinary man, untouched by the flames of hell. I knew instinctively that this was a messenger from God. The presence spoke to me, revealing that the church was meant to be a place where souls were set right with God. Music, in particular, was a divine tool meant to uplift and glorify God, to lead people into His presence. But the souls in hell had corrupted this gift, allowing songs from the enemy to infiltrate the church. The messenger expressed God's displeasure with how these souls had brought satanic music into the church. They had failed to discern the true origin of the songs they were singing. These songs did not edify the church, but instead, they led many believers away from God's path. He revealed to me that the enemy was using music as a subtle yet powerful weapon, especially within the walls of the church. Certain types of music, though pleasing to the ears, were spiritually harmful and never meant to be sung in the house of God. The messenger explained that these songs had a hidden agenda, and those who lacked discernment were unknowingly leading themselves and others astray. First, there were songs from artists who had sold their souls to the devil. These individuals had made pacts with dark forces in exchange for fame, wealth, or influence. Though their music might carry messages of love, hope, or unity, the source was corrupted. It was a direct gateway for demons to enter the lives of listeners. These artists, the messenger said, have been seduced by the enemy's promises. They now serve as vessels to transmit his influence through music. If you sing their songs in church, you are allowing the same darkness into the hearts of those who worship. Next, there were songs with origins that were not from God. These songs may have originated from secular environments, or they may carry melodies that were not divinely inspired. Even if the lyrics seem innocent, their spiritual roots are tainted. The messenger warned that some of these songs had been composed under spiritual influences not aligned with God's will, making them spiritually dangerous to sing in worship. The spirit behind the song matters as much as the words, he said. What you feed your soul through worship must be pure, or else you open yourself to deception. He further cautioned against songs whose rhythms appealed primarily to emotions ***, but did nothing to edify the spirit. This, he said, was one of the enemy's greatest tricks, using rhythm, beats, and melodies to stir emotional responses without any true spiritual growth. These songs might make the congregation feel good, excited, or emotional, but they did not lead anyone into deeper communion with God. Instead, they appealed to the flesh, keeping worship shallow and hollow. The enemy used these emotional highs to distract believers from what true worship is meant to accomplish: a connection with God in spirit and truth. True worship leads to transformation, the messenger said, not just feelings of excitement. If the song only stirs emotions and leaves the soul unchanged, it is not fit for the church. These types of songs, if consistently embraced, would lead souls to spiritual blindness and, ultimately, hell, just as it had led the singing souls I saw in torment before me. The messenger emphasized that music is more than just sound and words. It is a spiritual vehicle that can either carry people closer to God or lead them straight into the hands of the enemy. You must be vigilant, for the enemy has made it his mission to infiltrate the church through music. He knows how easily people are swayed by what sounds good, rather than what is spiritually right. I then saw how some of the souls were tied by their tongues. They were pleading for help, trying to speak, but they couldn't. Their tongues were tightly bound, a form of torment that prevented them from crying out to God or anyone else. Their voices had once sung songs of deceit, and now their tongues were bound in punishment. With a sudden jolt, I woke up in the hospital. I was confused, unsure of what had just happened. The pain from the accident was still there, but I was alive. As I lay there, I knew what I had experienced wasn't just a dream. It was real, and I had been given a message to deliver. As I reflect on my time in hell, I can't shake the feeling of urgency. Music is a powerful tool, but if we're not careful, it can become a gateway for the enemy to deceive us. I've seen firsthand the consequences of allowing demonic music into our churches, and I'm warning you now, be careful what you sing. Be careful what you listen to. Not everything that sounds good is from God. There are many talented souls who have been called to lead worship, but they are being lured by the enemy. We must pray for them, that they would not be deceived by the offers of fame and fortune. Instead, let us pray that they remain true to the calling that God has placed on their lives. For the consequences of straying are too severe, and hell is no place for a child of God. All right, friends, this brings us to end of today's experience. Kindly like and share this video with your friends and families. Kindly subscribe to our channel and turn on your notification bell icon to be the first to get updated anytime we upload a new experience sent to us. Remain blessed.